And welcome to Blood Bowl 101. It's part 3 in our ongoing series of Blood Bowl videos. Today we're going to look at specific actions. We're going to focus on one action, okay? But before we get into it, let's do a quick recap. Video 1 was your intro, what you needed to play. Video 2, if you haven't seen it, is your pre-game and initial setup of the game, okay? So now that we're set up, and we're still set up here, excuse me, I am sick, so bear with the scratchy voice, okay? But now that we've got our team set up, and we're going to assume for this example that the Skaven have kicked off to the humans, and it's the humans' turn, okay? So this is the opening turn, or what is known as the drive, okay, of the humans. So how in the heck do we get this ball to the end zone? How is that accomplished? It's done by what is known as actions, okay? So on the humans' turn, you're going to nominate players one by one, and you're going to declare actions. So what are actions? Actions are, your basic actions are move, block, blitz, foul, pass, handoff. They have to be declared. For example, we have Ryder here, who has a movement of 6. Okay. Now, I don't have this game. Unfortunately, doesn't come with cool stat cards like War Machine or whatever. But I'll give you an example. This is a star player card. Now, Ryder here doesn't have the same stats, but he does have, the same category of stuff. Okay, so your movement, which is that top number, would represent the number of squares a player can move. Your strength represents how strong you are. Your agility comes into play whenever you're catching a ball or throwing a ball or dodging, that sort of thing. Armor is the number that the opposing player needs to beat to injure you. And of course, you have skills and what team this guy plays on, but we're not using him. Now, you're just going to have to take my word on it that your human thrower can move 6, okay? So if I wanted to move him, I'd say, okay, Ryder here is going to move. And, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'd normally turn my guys around. It's not part of the rules. It just makes it so that I know that, personally I know that he is done, okay? Sound fair? Now, today's lesson, we're going to just focus on the movement action, okay? There's a couple of things that we need to go over on movement. Movement sounds basic, but there's just 2 things that we really need to discuss here so that you understand everything involved in movement. Now, I said earlier that Ryder here has a max move of 6. Not necessarily true, okay? His stat might say 6, but each player is allowed what is known as a go-for-it move. You're allowed 2 go-for-its per player per turn. So let's say I wanted to move this guy 7. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, that square, let's say I want to move to that square, but it's beyond my normal movement. I have to make a go-for-it roll. So what is a go-for-it roll? Basically, it represents this guy really pushing it to the limits. He's going to be sprinting into that square. So I declare my go-for-it. And a go-for-it's a flat number to beat. You just need a 2 or better. Whoa, that's cocked. So I got my 2. So he stays. Now, had I rolled a 1, this is very important, he would fall down. That would end my turn. because anytime you fail in a declared action in this game, you commit what is called a turnover, and your opponent gets to go. Okay? So, let's say I failed my go for it. The opponent, not only does he fall down, but the opponent gets to roll and try to beat his armor. Now, his armor is 7, and we've rolled an 8, which is very bad news for our thrower, because now we would get to roll to see if we injure him. We don't. Okay, so actually he falls flat on his face, and he will spend all of next turn rolling over. It's important to know, and I can't stress on this enough. Any failed action, whether it's a miscatch, when you declare a catch, or a miss pickup when you declare a pickup, or a miss dodge when you declare a dodge, anything where your player is knocked on the ground on your turn is a turnover. Now normally I get to move all my players, declare actions with them, and when I'm done with that final player, then it's the opposing guy's turn, unless I commit a turnover. And that could really mess you up. Now, that really should be saved for the tactics section, but it's important to know now while we're talking about movement, because normally people think of move as a safe move in the game, a move without risk, because let's face it, anytime you're rolling a dice in this game, you're basically you're looking at risk, okay? Because if you fail the dice roll, your turn ends, unless you want to burn a reroll. But this is just a tutorial. We'll get more into that later. The other important thing to know about movement is dodging. Now, what the hell is dodging? Well, you have to imagine around each player there's a 1 square perimeter known as the tackle zone. Okay? Now, if I'm in an opposing player's tackle zone and I wish to leave it, I would have to make a dodge check. Now, if I fail that dodge check, I fall on my face, my opponent gets to roll on my armor to see if he beats it, and I commit a turnover. So it's important to understand that dodges are part of risk, okay, in movement. Those are the only 2 types of dangerous movement that could cause a potential turnover. So how do we perform a dodge? Well, if I'm dodging to this square, and it's a square with no opposing tackle zones around it, I would make an agility check. So what we do is, very simply, consult the agility table. This is the agility table. If you're familiar with Warhammer whatsoever, it's like a ballistic skill type chart, okay? So you consult his agility would be 3, he would need a 4+. Now there are modifiers when making dodges. Dodging into a square with no opposing tackle zones gives me a +1. I would have made it anyways, but my agility 3 + 1 would mean that on a 3+, I have a successful dodge. Now, there are negatives. If I were to try to dodge into this square here, I'm dodging from a tackle zone into another tackle zone. That tackle zone is a -1. So I get a -1 for dodging from a tackle zone into another tackle zone, but a +1 for trying. So they balance out, and I would need a 4+. So I got the 5, you'd be okay. Now it gets worse because they stack. So the important thing to know here is if I was dodging into this square into 2 tackle zones, well, guess what? Now I get the +1 for attempting the dodge, but then I get a -2 per enemy tackle zones that I'm dodging into, which means that I'm at -1. Guess what? The 4+ wouldn't do it. Okay? I would fall on my face and commit that turnover. So that is important to know, because in this game, positioning players, if you can't knock players down, you can always try to position them into a spot where they would have to make a risky dodge to get out. It's a passive thing that the defense can do, because all you have to do is be standing and be alert. You know, there's certain instances where you're not aware that you're playing Blood Bowl. We'll get into that later. But the important thing to know is it's passive. This player doesn't have to do anything for you to commit that turnover. It's on you to pass that roll. So as a defensive player, let's say, you know, you have a player that's about to score on you, and you can't quite get to him to knock him down, or you just push him or whatever. You can surround him in tackle zone so that on his turn, he's going to have to make some very hard rolls to get out of that spot. So that's just, so that covers movement, and I'm a little bit over on time, but I think it was well worth it to stress those 2 points, and we'll see you on the next video.